So thank you so much again to all of our panelists for attending and to all of our WoA members for being a part of this virtual panel. So currently I'm a structural analysis engineer at Lockheed Martin Space, and I graduated in 2019 from the University of Michigan. So again, I wanted to thank Matt and the technical development team for putting together this panel, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity to hear about benefits of industry as well as benefits of continuing on to get additional degrees. I'd like to take the time to introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to ask them to give a short introduction, and then we'll go ahead and start right on with our questions. So I'd like to introduce Carolyn Overmeyer from Lockheed Martin Space Systems, Erin Evans from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Janelle Wellons from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Sarah Shull from NASA Johnson Space Center, Patrick Pischutti from the University of Colorado at Boulder, Shikha Redhal from the University of Maryland at College Park, and Wadhwa from Arizona State University. Would our panelists like to give a short introduction of what path they choose, industry versus grad school, and how they came to this decision? Caroline, would you like to start? Maybe we'll start with a different panelist. Sarah Shull, would you like to give a brief introduction?
Sure. So I'm Sarah Shull. Hello, everybody. I work NASA Johnson Space Center. I did my undergrad actually at University of Michigan as well, go blue. And my grad school, my master's degree at MIT. Go MIT. I actually started working at NASA Johnson immediately after my undergrad. Worked for about 4 years in the Mission Control Center, and then decided I wanted to go back to grad school. So I actually took a leave of absence from NASA for 2 years and did my master's degree, and then ended up coming back to NASA Johnson and have been there my whole career. So I'm a little different in that I didn't go straight through, and but I did go back full time when I went back. So I can add some perspective to that decision. Folks are interested later.
Thank you.
I presently support the Artemis program. I'm the Associate Mission Manager for Artemis.
Patrick, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Patrick Pischutti. I'm born and raised in Augsburg, Germany. Did my undergrad at the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. Now currently at the University of Colorado Boulder in the bioastronautics program as a PhD student. My route through all of this was a little weary as I first pursued a professional career in basketball. That didn't pan out, and then I pivoted into more of a engineering focus. Then it basically worked throughout my whole undergrad on the side. Did some jobs that were related to my field, some that weren't as much. And yeah, interned at NASA, at Johnson Space Center, and Langley, and yeah, seen a couple of places.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Is Shikha on the line?
Myself, Shikha. Yeah. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
So I did my undergrad back in India. I'm born and raised there, but I came to US to pursue my graduate studies. So I did my master's, and I'm currently a PhD student at University of Maryland. And I went straight through from my undergrad to grad studies. And my current research focuses on chemical propulsion, specifically with detonation engines, and I'm also involved with the work of WoAA at the national chapter as well as the local chapter. Yeah, just a straight path, nothing much fancy. I just wanted to. I was actually I was scared that if I go into industry, I might not come back to graduate school. So I thought it's a good way. I was sure that I want a grad degree, so just go straight ahead and get the master's degree. Stayed for my research.
Thank you. Is Janelle Wellons on?
Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
My name is Janelle Wellons, and I graduated from MIT with my bachelor's in aerospace engineering about 4 years ago. And I've been working at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory ever since as an instrument operations engineer. And basically, my job at JPL is to operate our instruments in flight. And so I started on the Cassini mission, and when that ended, I moved on to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And I'm also working on developing how we're going to operate a future instrument that will be observing our own planet. I did not get my graduate degree yet. And I say yet because as I've spent more time at JPL, I have had more and more interactions with people who say, so when are you getting your master's? It doesn't even seem like it seems like a when, not a will you at this point. And so I too am kind of weighing my options and figuring out when is the best time to go back while also balancing debt and making sure that I'm not paying for it out of pocket and all of those cool things.
Thank you. That's also my plan. Prefer not to pay out of pocket.
Right.
Erin, are you on the line? Erin Evans?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so my name is Erin Evans, and I currently work at Blue Origin on ground software, ground autonomy. I started off doing my undergrad in mechanical engineering at Caltech. I always knew I wanted to do aerospace, but since Caltech was close in proximity to JPL, I chose Caltech for mechanical engineering. I never actually made it out to the JPL while doing my undergrad, though. Just so happened that way. I knew I wanted to go to grad school, but I also knew I really needed a break before continuing to go to school. So I applied for a couple different PhD programs, and then when I got in, realized that I needed the break and deferred my acceptance for a year. So I instead did a year-long internship at SpaceX, working in the propulsion department for that year, which was good because it gave me a lot of perspective in terms of what's really important and what sort of things I should be focusing on learning while I'm in grad school, and also making sure that the field I picked for grad school is what I really wanted to be doing, which is controls. So I then went to grad school after deferring for a year, which was nice. Going back to the person who said they just wanted to go straight through because they definitely wanted their degree, it was nice to know that at the end of a year, I had a spot waiting for me. There was no way I could accidentally stay in industry and just get caught up in the niceness of it all. So I went planning to do my PhD and then actually left after my master's, partly due to the exciting things that were happening in the aerospace industry and the exciting things that were happening in the launch vehicle industry specifically.
Thank you. Is Meenie on the line?
Can you hear me now, or is it still muted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. All right. So, sorry about the delay. So my name is Minnie Wadhwa, and like Shikha, I actually grew up, I was born and grew up in India, and I actually got my undergraduate degree from Punjab University in northern India in geology. And it was not really an option, for me to think about industry versus academia, or maybe it was, in the sense that I was actually offered a job in the Oil and Natural Gas Commission in India as soon as I graduated with geology. But I I was really very, I guess, motivated to apply what I knew about geology to understand something about our larger world that we live in, and the solar system in particular. I figured, you know, the Earth is a planet, and we live in a solar system that has other planets. And so, you know, I grew up kind of learning about geology of the Earth, and geology refers to basically learning about the Earth. But then, you know, I really was very motivated to learn something about, you know, solar system science and planetary science, and that's why I came to graduate school in the United States, because that's kind of where I saw all, you know, where all the opportunities were in that particular field. And really, I never regretted that decision, because it's been a really, really exciting time, and it's even more exciting right now, you know, as we're planning to, you know, head to the moon and Mars with the Artemis program, and all the excitement that's going on with launching the first, I guess, astronauts from the U.S. soil in just about a decade, I guess. And it's really kind of a very exciting time to be a planetary scientist and a space scientist. So that's kind of what kind of motivated me to come to graduate school in the United States. I came to get my PhD at Washington University in space, in Earth and Planetary Sciences. I then basically did a brief postdoc at the University of California at San Diego, and then spent about 11 years at the Field Museum and the University of Chicago, so in the Midwest, and then moved to Arizona State University, where I've been for the last about 14 years. And it's been an incredible place to be. I'm director of the School of Earth and Space Exploration, which is just about one of the most fantastic places to be, with the kinds of colleagues who do all kinds of exploring of the solar system, Earth and solar system and beyond, looking out at the universe and exoplanets and all of that really exciting stuff. And I also am chair of the NASA Advisory Council Science Committee, and so get to see and get to be involved in a lot of the really fun, exciting science that NASA does in the spheres of Earth science, planetary science, heliophysics, and astrophysics. So it's been an amazing ride.
Thank you. That sounds like a really awesome experience to have. And then last, I'd like to introduce Carolyn Overmeyer. Carolyn, we just were hoping everybody would give a brief introduction to themselves, and kind of whether they went into industry or grad school, and kind of how they came about that process.
I think you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, maybe
There you
that's
go.
it.
Yep.
Okay, hear me now? All right, great. Sorry, I've used BlueJeans and I've used Teams and I've used everything but WebEx as a video. So we're learning every day the different systems. Sorry about that. I'm Carolyn Overmeyer, and I am a systems engineering director with Lockheed Martin Space out in Denver. I've spent the last 10 years of my life working on the Orion program as a service module manager. So I did all the DDT&E development, design, development, test, evaluation, and assembly of the entire service module, which included the European service module that was built by Airbus through ESA. So I've spent most of my career, I'm old, guys. I've spent 30 years of my career doing manned space flight, did spend a little bit of time doing GPS and some ground system work. I have an aerospace engineering degree, BS degree from the University of Texas at Austin, and I went back and got my MBA after spending a couple of years with McDonnell Douglas at that time working on the space station. I felt like I needed some time away from school after my undergrad, and at that time there was a whole lot of really cool things going on. Space station was just starting to be developed. We had a lot of aerospace work going on.
F-16 work going on, F-22, the beginnings of F-35. So for me, it was the right answer. We were just returning to space with the space shuttle after the Space Shuttle Challenger accident. So the right thing for me to do was to go right into industry. I did, like I said, spend a couple of years in industry and then went back, got McDonnell Douglas to pay for it, and got my MBA. As an engineering student, you'll find that you end up with a lot of prerequisites. So it took me about 4 years in the evenings to get my degree, to get that degree. But I've actually used that a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm a program manager. I do a lot of trying to figure out where the money's coming from, how to, deal with earned value. And these days, it's a lot about commonality, production, being able to produce parts, and being able to, be affordable. Because that's what the government is now wanting, is a lot more affordable operations.
Thank you. Thank you again for introducing yourself for all of our panelists. We're going to start with one question that was prepared by the technical development team, and then we're going to go out into our audience questions. Our first question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone who is trying to make that decision now? Would you say go to grad school, wait a minute, get your PhD? The opportunities are endless. And if you would like to say that, you can just unmute yourself. If not, I can call like one-on-one like I did with the introductions.
I can start, I guess. I mean, it really depends what you want out of your career and kind of what you're facing right now. And so I would say if you've got exciting job opportunities in front of you with a bachelor's degree, you can always go back. It does get harder, I'm sure, to go back. Like I said, chose to go back after 4 years, partially because I took the GRE right after undergrad and it was going to expire, the test results, in 5 years. And I thought, oh God, I'll never get as good of a grade as I did right after undergrad. So I gotta go now. But there's always opportunities to go back to school. There's always opportunities to do it part-time or in the evening. But that said, if you're not facing, the prospects of your job right away, then yeah, I think going to grad school, getting at least a master's degree seems to be the standard. People always ask me at NASA, do most folks have just undergrad, master's, PhD? It's very varied. I work at an ops center, and so this is not based on data. This is just my guesstimate. I would say probably half the people have a master's degree, 10% or less have a PhD, because again, we're an operations center, we're not a research center, and the other 40-ish% have just an undergrad. So the majority, I would say, do have a master's degree, a lot of which got it in the evenings while working or on the weekends. So yeah, it really depends what you're looking for and how the job market looks at the time you're considering it.
And I go maybe. I was just going to offer that, I can only speak from my own perspective, but for me it was driven by what really what my passion was. What drove my curiosity, what drove my interest, and trying to, in some ways, I basically decided to go to grad school right out of undergrad. I was 21 at the time, and you might think, hey, that's too early to really know exactly what you want out of life. But there's some things that you're really excited about. You get up in the morning feeling really kind of excited about learning about something, and I always knew that I just wanted to know more about what was out there beyond the Earth and the solar system, and so it seemed like grad school was a pathway to doing that. And so I think you just have to sort of try to look for ways in which you can figure out where your interests and your love and your passion really are in terms of learning about the things that you really care about. Because if you let economics drive what you are going to do for the rest of your life, I don't know if that's if you're gonna be you're gonna enjoy being where you are 10 years down the road. At some level, you have to really love what you do, and then it's not going to feel like work in some ways. And so that's just my perspective. But again, it's hard to do, and to try to figure out really what you love. I mean, there's ways to try to do that, doing internships, doing your undergraduate career, research opportunities, all those kinds of things can really help you kind of hone in on what you're really good at and what you really love to do.
To build on what Sarah Shull was saying before, it can help to find someone who is in a position that you can envision yourself being in and ask them what sort of degrees they see, like, in operations or controls is the field that I'm in, and ask what the sort of degree they look for when they're hiring. In my position, a master's is the minimum for the type of work that I do. And so I knew that going in, which helped drive home my need to go get a master's, is I already knew that if that's my goal, I have to start there at least. So finding someone who's in a position that you want to find yourself in and asking them what they see around them will help focus your path a little bit.
I agree with everything you guys have said. I do feel that sometimes you don't really know what you're really passionate about, and work and different jobs give you a chance to go try a bunch of different things. I know when I started my career, I worked for McDonnell Douglas at the time. I spent 7 years doing probably 7 different types of things on station. I was doing EVA testing and the what if. I was doing and the KC-135. I was working with the Russians doing integration. I think it's just whatever opportunity is available to you. I felt like where I found the most fun was all the cool stuff that I did at work with a bunch of different people. And it was great learning from everybody who showed up that was passionate about human spaceflight. I do think, though, I agree with you, Erin, the higher up you go in an organization, the more you're probably going to want to get your master's. I know at Lockheed, to get to higher levels, they're actually expecting you to have a master's degree and, even a PhD. So if you're looking at a leadership role, a fellow position in the future, you really have to have that degree. You have to have the graduate degree.
Also, to second what Carolyn just said, so especially me, I jumped around a lot, and I never really knew what really gave me the passion like basketball did back in the day. So what I just did was basically trial by error. I tried a couple of things out that seemed interesting to me, and then I actually found out I have no interest in being there. One of the examples is, for example, as a German, one of the things is that pop up is always the automotive industry, and I thought I wanted to work at BMW so bad. But once I got like a bit of a taste of what that would actually mean and what the work would look like, I found out that this is not what I wanted. So I'm completely on the same board that there is no right answer. The right answer is do what you're really passionate about, because that's the only way to excel at your work, basically. But then, like, if you don't know what that is right now, try out things, and then you will basically see what gets you going in the morning and what just does not have that power.
And if I can add to the conversation, I would say that when I was still in school and it came time for senior year, it was never even on my radar to be applying to get another degree. And it's not because I didn't enjoy the learning experience. It was more so because I felt this immense pressure to be able to get a job with the degree that I did manage to get. Mainly because throughout my entire time in school, I learned that what I was most passionate about in the aerospace engineering program was space. But I had failed to get an internship in any kind of space job. And so at that point, I was sort of panicking come senior year because, a lot of places like to hire their previous interns. And the place that I was really hoping to work, JPL, they really do believe in that pipeline of intern to early career hire. And I didn't have that. And so when I got the call that I was going to be interviewed, that's all I could set my eyes on. And to be offered the job, I knew I was going to take it. There were no questions about getting a master's or any of those things. But now that I'm at JPL, and echoing what a lot of you have said, for leadership positions and moving on in your career and having the ability to move around more easily, it is expected for you to at least have your master's degree to get to those positions. There are always exceptions, but it seems more clear that's the route to go. And it seems like a lot of people at JPL, they do the part-time deal to getting their master's, mostly at USC from what I see, and it takes maybe 2.5 to 3 years to get it. But the nice thing is that JPL will reimburse the costs after each semester of your classes, which is nice. It's just a matter of getting the strength to study for, take the GREs, and then actually do it, which is kind of where I am now. But it does seem like it's very manageable and something that many people have done and survived. So it's definitely a feasible option to get your master's while you're working somewhere. And it's a nice thing to consider when you're trying to figure out where you want to work, if they will pay for you to get your master's or sometimes even your PhD while still working for the company.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your responses.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'll just quickly add one thing that I think I'm the only one, no, maybe the second one who just directly went to a graduate school after their undergrad studies. I feel what really matters is that you should try out different research projects during your undergrad, because when I went into my master's degree, I was very sure that what field of aerospace I want to do because of my previous experience at undergrad, like which field, what kind of research I want to work on. And once, like, you should, if you are not sure, then don't aim for like, oh, just don't apply for a PhD program directly. What you could try is go for a master's program. And one of the very most important thing I feel with grad school is that you should really focus out like which professors, which field you want to work out. And if you have a very good idea about it, then I feel it's a good idea to just go into a grad school, at least get a master's. And if you really like the research, if you feel very comfortable with that, you will automatically want to get a degree like PhD. I came with an idea with like just getting a master's, but I really love my research. And I was like, no, I should just like finish it, do something else with it, try different things out, because that gives you a totally different experience, which is different from undergrad. Like you do have classes, but I feel your research capabilities really get tested and you get all sorts of different challenges doing your research, doing your master's. So I feel, again, it's very subjective, but just trying to get different experiences during your undergrad, that would really help. And in the end, it's just all what your heart says.
Thank you. We're going to take our first question from the chat. So the first one is, what sort of job opportunities does having a PhD in aerospace engineering open up? Alternatively, does it close doors on other opportunities by making you seem more overqualified or more pigeonholed?
I can take that. I think PhD gets you in when you're looking at like materials properties, when you're looking at aerodynamics, when you're doing a lot of the analysis type of work that's very detailed on, like flutter or acoustics and things like that. Those are the kinds of positions that a PhD, or controls is going to find that they're being offered those kinds of roles. I've worked with all kinds. You tend to be a lot more specialized, which means that you are narrower focused, and you may not have as many opportunities to actually find a position at like Lockheed Martin or some of the big aerospace companies. I think sometimes you are going to have to really find that internship that then becomes a full-time position in the future, and really kind of get to meet and create a relationship with the company and with the organization that you want to work in, so that they can create the job for you. It's a little harder. It's a niche type job, or a niche type item, area that you're looking at. So you're not going to find as wide as just being a mechanical engineer coming in to do like propulsion or something. It's just that you've got to kind of create the relationships, find the industry organizations that can match you up with the type of position you want, and then you got to go from there.
Maybe I can add something here. So, I have a PhD in Earth and Planetary Science. I don't have a PhD in aerospace engineering, but I do know colleagues that obviously have PhDs in aerospace engineering, and most of those colleagues that I know have faculty positions at Arizona State University, for example, or at the University of Chicago, where I worked previously. So basically, if you think that you might want to have a job and on the research side of aerospace engineering in academia and teaching and mentoring and those kinds of activities, then you want to have a PhD in aerospace engineering for sure. But if you find that you have your PhD and then you realize, well, you really want to try to focus on a job that's more in the industry side of things and more in a leadership role in some sort of in a company that's sort of specializing in space systems or other things, places like Lockheed Martin, for example, that Carolyn was talking about. I think there's the skills that you learn as part of doing your graduate degree, things, problem-solving skills and working as part of teams that you can apply to all different kinds of applications. And so I think it's a matter of sort of knowing as you get your degree, or as you try to hone in on exactly what you want to do, what your end goal is, and then trying to see how your skill set actually can address the kinds of things that are required for that particular job. So, and just again, from perspective of sort of, coming from someone who has a PhD in the field and thinking about, what the opportunities there might be.
Thank you. I'm going to add a little additional question onto that. Do you have any recommendations then for people who are already in industry but are potentially thinking of getting a PhD? Is this something that, do you think this would be a good idea to leave? Is it worth it once you're already in industry?
That's a tough question. I mean, I think making the transition back from industry back to academia, or back to getting a PhD and trying to do that, you have to. I would assume that having spent some time out in industry, maybe you figured out that really you want to be on the research side and the teaching side, perhaps. And if you do, then I think that there's absolutely a way to make that transition, and in fact, there's more and more PhD students and graduate students that are the so-called sort of non-traditional students, that have had a lot of experience in industry. And for, speaking as a professor in a school, of Earth and Space Exploration, for example, where we do look at a lot of applications from graduate students from all different spheres, I think, it's really, as somebody who'd be involved with working with one of the students who may have been in industry, I think it's actually it's a great strength, if you've had some experience in industry coming back into research, because again, you can bring a lot of different skills back into the kinds of things that you would need in a graduate career, the problem-solving skills, the working as part of teams and communication skills, all of those things that really help you be successful in graduate school. So I think the transition can sometimes be a little bit difficult, mainly because graduate school can be it's a very different experience, of course, than having a real job, because first of all, the salaries, even if it's a full ride and you get paid for everything, the salaries are not really anything compared to industry. So it can be a bit of a challenge. And then on top of that, I mean, it's kind of a stressful. It can be stressful. I mean, there's deadlines to meet and there's courses to take and all of that, and you just have to get in that mindset. That if that's what you want to do, then you do it for a few years, and then there's something on the other side of it that you really want to do. But from the perspective of somebody who's mentored graduate students, I know that somebody who's coming from an industry background would be very attractive in terms of having a lot of skills that you bring to grad school. So yeah, it just depends on whether you want to do it.
Thank you.
If I can chime in on this real quick. So actually, that's a very good example for me. My advisor actually selected me for this position that he had based on the fact that I had industry experience. He was like, that was a perfect fit. I've seen NASA before, I've worked there before, so it actually really supported my application to have that experience. And to me personally, if it's worth it, if you really do the math behind it, it's hard to justify. But then on the other hand, it's hard to put a price tag on happiness or ending up in the place you really want to be in. Like that to me is hard to put a price. So it's a soul searching thing in my eyes.
Thank you.
I think
Anybody else? Good. Thank you.
I look at I know space is hard. Space has a lot of hard problems, and I see people every day solving those hard problems. And I see a lot of people that come into it realize some of the challenges that we have to do in our analysis and how we design things, electronic components, digital, all the hard problems that we have getting into the space environment. And I see a lot of people going back in and getting their PhD simply to become part of the solution. So I actually think, I think a lot of people come out with their masters, they have a plan, I'm going to go do my PhD. Sometimes, they go get sideways and figure out, I want to solve this problem instead of the problem that I thought I wanted to do. And so it does give you a chance to see different things and to understand what kind of tools are out there. Now obviously the universities have some of the state-of-the-art test tools and analysis activities, but when I was going to school, industry was where you really had the ability to go see things like bitables that were giant and vacuum chambers that were the big, like out at Plumbrook Station, the biggest things in the world. So I think it by going into industry, you do get an opportunity to go figure out where you want to focus your PhD, and you also get the relationship so that you have either a job when you come back or you get the company to pay for it.
Thank you. I'm going to pivot a little bit to a master's degree now. Have any of you completed your master's degree through an online program? And if you have, what recommendations do you have?
I see people that I work with that have online master's degrees. I did not get one. I did not have that opportunity. I spent 3 hours every night for about 3 years. It seemed like every weeknight trying to get through classwork. But I think nowadays, just like what we're doing right now, is things are very virtual. And I think there is obviously good things that come with being face-to-face with a master's program, but I think there's a lot of of ability to do master's programs online and get the same benefits. It'd be nice to have a more hybrid approach where you can go, you know, do some classwork online, but then also have the ability to go in, especially if you're getting a technical master's, to go in and, you know, work in labs and things like that. So I'm not sure how much you can get a technical, you know, I think you need to have a little bit of technical face-to-face activities.
Currently at CU Boulder, we have a lot of distance learning students in the master's program. And so they go through the exact same things we do in class, just like some of the team meetings is then done remotely. And I think everybody, due to this pandemic, now got a little exposure to what a online master's might look like. Keep in mind that compared to undergraduate classes, you do have less classes. So for example, 9 credits is a full load. However, those classes might then be a little bit more work intensive. So what I heard from some of my fellow students, that for them, like a class that is focused more on individual projects works pretty easy. Sometimes it can get a little bit hard to schedule with students that are in class because like the schedules are so different. But yeah, if you had an easy time during this pandemic and we all converged to Zoom University, then don't be afraid of our online masters. I don't think there's any difference when it comes to actually then get a different job.
The online masters, I feel like, has been the #1 blocking force as to why I've been holding off on getting my own degree. And that's because when I first moved out here to California, I roomed with one of my classmates from MIT, and he immediately started his online master's program in systems engineering at Purdue. One, that program was going to take him 5 years to complete. I'm not sure why he signed up for it. And 2, I saw the struggle. We were new to work at that time, so just getting used to working for 9 hours a day and then coming home, he immediately wanted to relax, right? But this culminated often to spending the entire weekend watching all the lecture videos, turning in all the homeworks, and sometimes just missing ones that are due daily because he just didn't have time for it or didn't want to do it because he was tired. So I think timing really matters. I think now that I feel much more comfortable in my job, and because of this, now we're doing everything online. At first, I was horrible at this WebEx stuff and working from home. I felt super inefficient, and I definitely could not imagine doing this for school. Um, at least during work, I have like hours when I'm going to be talking to my colleagues. With the online programs that I see, it's more like the material's there when it's released, and it's up to you to schedule time for yourself to do it. But now that I've gone through this, I feel like I've become much more comfortable and much more regimented with being able to do things on my own and have a little bit more faith that an online program will be appropriate. And honestly, it's my only choice at this point because I can't leave the money. I can't leave industry and go back to school. It would just hurt too much. And all the interest I paid down on my loans would kind of just come back while I was in school, which would be a huge bummer on the progress I've made. So online is the only way that I would go. And so I do think that it's definitely feasible as long as you have the capability to sit down and block out time for yourself that this is when I'm going to do school. So you don't drive yourself crazy and never have a weekend with friends again.
One additional point to add to that, online masters definitely have a huge benefit in terms of flexibility. It's also useful to consider the benefit of finding a master's program that allows you to do some thesis work or research work as part of the master's. I know my program at MIT allowed it, and a few others do as well. There's some other master's programs where it's primarily coursework, which is great because you get a smattering of a bunch of different topics that you'll be working on for the rest of your career, but having the experience of owning a topic and having to go into depth on that topic, even if it's just for 2 years, I think was a really valuable experience for me. And when I'm doing hiring, I do occasionally look for that sort of experience because it says something about your ability to independently dig deep into a topic, you know, sort of a very, very small mini PhD in terms of the experience that you get.
Just adding to that point, what Irene said, that it's very important to decide like what degree you want to, whether you want a professional degree or you are doing your master's degree in an idea that I might one day get a PhD or I like research. If you really want to work in research, it's better to get like hands-on experience, whether if you're doing computational work, because it helps to work in teams, interact with people, sit down and think about the different ideas that everyone is working, because research is something that you have to hit your head on the wall, because at some points you cannot think what you're going to do next. It really helps if you have like people around you helping in that. But it's just a degree that you want to make a progress in your career or a more professional degree. I have lots of friends who have done or who are planning to do an online degree. So it really matters like what your end goal is and what type of degree you really want out of it.
Thank you. I'm going to continue with another question from the audience. How do you go about having the company pay for your master's? What would be an effective way to approach this situation? And I'd also like to mention the Technical Development Committee is going to host a panel on how to pay for grad school. But just right now, if there's any experiences that you've had that you would like to share.
Sure. The HR page at JPL actually kind of lays it out for you. So it's not something you necessarily have to negotiate. It's just considered a benefit of working there that's open to all employees. And basically how it works is, as long as you are getting a degree in a relevant field to your current job, then JPL is more than willing to foot the bill, as long as I believe you have to keep a B grade average or something like that. There's some kind of qualification for what your GPA has to be at the very least while you're in school for them to end up reimbursing you. And they also give you the opportunity, let's say, if you wanted to get a degree in something that's not related to your field, they will still give you money towards it. For instance, maybe if I wanted to get an MBA, but I'm in a very technical field right now, they will still pay for part of it. They just will give you up to less of a certain amount. And let's say you wanted to go to a school that costs more money than what they normally give towards a technical degree, you can petition your division manager to actually grant you the larger reimbursement. And so that's where you would have to have good negotiation skills, I suppose. But I believe that a lot of companies, if they offer it, they will talk about it in their benefits, because that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, Lockheed is the same way. You just have to talk to them about what the degree plan is before they'll approve it. But then it's so much, and they'll pay so much, not per semester that you're in it. So, or per year. I think it's like 10,000 or something per year. There's some tax liabilities there that they have to deal with. But yeah, you just have to go in and they'll approve. I've had people get aviation degree programs that included flying. It just depended upon who when you got in and who you talked to and how they approved it. Is you just got to kind of push your way through. Lockheed actually has several classes that they teach on our campus. We have a Waterton campus where we have it's almost like a small college that's where most of us work out of, and they teach all kinds of coursework in the evenings there. So you can get a degree right on the campus.
Yeah, and I was going to say, NASA, I think, has probably similar to Lockheed. My knowledge is a little bit old, but it was a set amount, $10K a year or something. For me, actually, it was a better deal for me to take a leave of absence, not have NASA pay for it, and do a research assistant. So that ended up, because NASA was like, oh, we're not paying for it too much. So, but they were willing to give me a leave of absence to go do it for the 2 years. because I wanted to do the full thesis and get the full campus experience, grow that network online. And MIT wasn't even an option to do the thesis one online, but yeah, so, but I definitely pursue teaching assistantship, research assistantship. Yeah, I guess my salary went down a bit from working to going back to being a grad student, but I still was okay for a couple of years.
I'm going to move on to another question. Does it matter if you do an MS or an MEng, and what's the difference between the two?
That's a question I don't actually know from an HR standpoint, if at NASA, at least, if there's a difference. I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't think there is, but I don't want to misspeak.
I don't think we differentiate at Lockheed. I mean, I look at a master's degree and I want to see what the kind of specialty is, but MS, MEng, I don't really care.
I do recruitment for JPL, and I've never once been asked to pay attention to if it's an MS or MEng. Way more dependent on the skill set.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask another question. Okay. As an international student wanting to join the industry after graduation, it's very difficult for international students to find a job in the aerospace industry due to security clearances. What suggestions / resources do you have for international students or students who are looking to get into the industry?
I think sometimes you have to look at other you know, the big defense companies, Lockheed and Boeing and even SpaceX and Blue Origin. You know, we do have a lot of hiring constraints on us. Sometimes you have to go to the smaller, more vendor-oriented companies that are providing parts or providing, you know, an avionics box or something like that, and start out there and get your experience base in one of these kind of subcontractor companies. And then you can create the relationships, and you can, and you know, we bring in, especially in some of the unclass programs that we have at Lockheed, we don't have a U.S. Requirements, you know, that you have to be a citizen of the United States. But it's hard. It's not something, we want to be able to have people that can move between different programs. So we're going to really kind of restrict that. But if we have somebody that comes in with a special skill, and we can't get that internally, or we can't get that from a person, you know, with a U.S. citizenship, we will look outside to outside this country.
The other thing that really helps with this is to, as Carolyn said, that you have to look at the subcontractors. And the best way that you could start doing that is, instead of you know, looking out here and there are small companies that you usually come at the career fairs, or they don't have like as such hiring or careers on their websites, and they're not very popular, but they are in the nearby sectors. So you could start, you know, seeing what are the different companies that are coming on the career fairs at your university, what are the small businesses that are around, because it's usually easier to go and talk to them first rather than just, as Carolyn said, going directly to a big company, because there are major restrictions. And the other thing is what really helps, other thing is that you should really look out to talk to people in person rather than just blindly applying online, because a lot of the times, because just seeing that you're an international student, your application doesn't even get picked. So like looking at your application is a separate issue. Like you don't even get picked, so they don't even look at whether you're qualified or not. So it's better to initially start making connections or talking to people, finding out what different options are there. Especially, I do know it's not for Indians, but NASA has a special internship applicants, which are for international students. They have tie-ups with 8 to 10 different countries that you can actually intern at NASA for certain sections. So you can just go online and try to find out those sections of different companies that are not directly that does not directly require US citizenship, and maybe start from that. And again, it just depends on your research and then how do you want to approach it. But you cannot just like go and say, I'm gonna work here. You have to like start with a smaller company and different requirements. Startups are good, I think. Startups are something that you can also look at, which really helps with that. And just like one last thing, to sorry, I just remembered something which was really helpful because I found I talked to a person in NASA and he had a friend who was not a US citizen, but he was working at NASA. So it's really good if you can find people who are working in different countries, different companies who are not US citizens, because then they can tell you what path you can take, which path that they chose. And from there, you can actually go into getting a green card or getting a more secure position at a better, more named company. So try to find out people who have those positions. It's really helpful.
Thank you. If our panelists are okay, I know we're approaching our hour deadline. We're going to ask one more question and then maybe leave it open for one final, if that's okay with everybody. I see some thumbs up. Okay. So this next question is how will not having a summer internship this year, partially due to the COVID-19, impact landing a great job or a spot at a top graduate school? Does the answer change depending on what year in school you are currently?
Good question. Hadn't thought about that one. I would say, yeah, if this is your last summer opportunity before you graduate, it's less desirable than if you're younger, have more years of school left, I should say. But that said, folks are going to have to be understandable, and they will be understandable. And I know, like NASA, we have some interns that started in the spring that were able to continue their internship remotely. I don't actually know, because I don't have any summer interns coming in personally, if they were bringing on folks for summer remotely. Folks can say what's happening at their companies, sure. But yeah, I mean, folks, this was a strange time for everybody. And so I think folks will be very understanding. Ideally, if you can find anything between now and when you finish, even if it's shortened or something like that, that'll still help. The more experience you have, better. But folks will definitely understand that it didn't happen this summer for many.
Yeah, I agree with that. At Lockheed, I think we're bringing in 2,400 interns this summer. About 70% of them are going to be working virtually, at least at the beginning of the summer, as we, kind of get through this shelter at home and can start getting. We've actually shipped laptops off to people with, instructions to get into the system. So, we're trying to do our best. We know it's a war on talent out there, and we're trying to look for the best talent. So, we are doing our best to keep the internships that we have this year going. If you weren't able to get an internship, and I totally understand it, this year was just insane. I think we're still looking for people. Your grades still matter a lot. Your relationship, and how you can get your resume out to different people. Look, just like what others have said. Don't look at some of the bigger companies. Look at some of the smaller companies, the Blue Canyons or the Moog, or just kind of outside the box a little bit for where to get an intern or where to get work during the school year. You might have to think about, maybe I'll cut my hours a little bit during the fall semester, and try and juggle something where you get more hours in the summer semester, so that maybe you can get something in the fall. So we try and do some internships kind of extend all year long, or we pick up new people at different times depending upon what's going on. So I think just be creative right now, and we do understand. So we're just trying to get the best talent out there. As is everybody else.
I
can report the same at JPL. We normally get about 800 interns each summer, but this summer we have around 350. And that's because basically if your job required you to be on lab to do it, you know, anything with hardware, being in a lab, we can't do that anymore. So we unfortunately had to rescind those offers. But I do have 2 interns incoming in 3 weeks now, and it will be totally remote. So that'll be an interesting experience. My advice, or what I can say, is one, everyone at JPL is fully aware of the situation, and we had to take away internships from people we thought were great and offered them to. So it's not going to be held against you at all. But if you can find ways to make your summer still productive in some way, that just shows great initiative. So maybe it's not working at a company, but maybe you take on some kind of personal project. Maybe you make your own personal website to showcase all the skills you've learned in school, for example. I know it's very vague and people always say it's nice to do things out of the classroom, but now more than ever, there are virtual opportunities popping up all over the place. So definitely take advantage of those and try and do something with your summer to stay active and keep your brain strong.
Regarding also the question if it would impact a potential positive response to a grad school application, usually look at a lot of different aspects of your application. So you have your statement of purpose, you have your grades, you have outside of grades, what do you do at the school? You got obviously your work experience. So like you can compensate a lot of things with other aspects of your application. So for example, now is if you don't have a summer job, it might be a perfect time to really start learning for the GRE and really dig down on this, and then get an amazing GRE score. If you have an amazing GRE score and good grades, and you've been involved in school, then nobody probably cares if you had an internship this summer during a pandemic, especially. So just try to stay productive, and then also once school starts, hopefully, try to get involved if you feel like you're missing some kind of like experience in one area. And I mean, I don't know necessarily how it is at every school, but from those that I've seen, there's usually some kind of way to get involved in every single direction. So just try to be active.
Thank you. The next question is, should I get an MS in aerospace if I want to go into program management within the aerospace industry, or is an MBA a good option as well?
I think either is fine. I think you will learn a lot if you want to go into program management. You know, you can get experience on campus doing lower, you know, on when you get into a position at work with a master's or an MBA, it doesn't really matter. But you know, it's understanding project integration, it's understanding project management, and then going up to, you know, program management to small programs, and then medium programs, and then large programs. It's good to understand the money side of the situation. It's good to be able to build a business case. You know, I get that in both an MS or an MBA, but it's really good to understand what you do is what kind of value you have, what your value statement is on your, you know, in your program. You have to, nowadays, everything has to be affordable, and really being able to understand commonality, you know, producibility, you know, all the things that come with any kind of engineering degree is you can become a program manager.
Yeah, I would agree. I do not have an MBA. I know Carolyn does, but I have a master's degree with systems engineering. So I do program management, mission management. Yeah, but a lot of it is what experience on the job. The systems engineering and the classes I took definitely helped for sure. You can do it either way. I do not work with a lot of folks that have MBAs, but it's also not a negative thing. It's just, it's not a common path, I would say, for NASA management.
Also, if you're torn between equally passionate being about an MBA or an engineering degree, there are dual degrees out there. I'm currently in a master's degree program where I get my aerospace master's and then I get my engineering management degree together. It's obviously a little more work because there are more classes to do. Like if you're equally passionate about, there are also many schools out there that offer a dual degree. CU being one of them.
Just as a plug, MIT also has a dual degree program for master's and MBA students called the LGO program.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts. Does anybody have any words of wisdom that they would like to leave with the rest of the WoAA group before we kind of wrap this up?
I think the whole thing, no matter if you go back to your grad degree or if you go into industry, it's all about where your passion is and where you find that you have fun, because you're going to be working for a long time. And you're, you know, and it's 40 hours plus a week, most of the time 50. And so if you don't like it, that's a long week, a long life. So find what you enjoy, and, you know, figuring out the economics of it, figuring out who's going to pay for what. Hopefully you don't end up with too giant debt, but I think it's all about where your passion is, because that's going to make it's going to enrich your life, and it's going to make you have some good experiences. You know, and one of the things I think I've learned in my career is you don't have a ladder anymore. You're not just popping up the rings until you get to the CEO position. It's called a lattice. And, you know, we go sideways, we go backwards, we go completely off grid and find something else to do. And, you know, you kind of pop back in and kind of slowly get your way back into something that and figure out where your passion is as you go through it. And so that's your career. It's about kind of just enjoying everything you do every day.
One thing I would add is that it really helps to have a bit of an optimistic viewpoint when you start to sort of think about, you know, what you want to be doing in 5 years' time. You know, I think trying to look for the opportunity in circumstance or opportunity in adversity, that's really kind of key, you know, because any time when there is difficult circumstances, there is always something that sort of is the flip side. You can really kind of lean into. And Janelle, you know, mentioned the fact that, hey, you know, everybody understands right now that things are difficult, but if you use this time to kind of do something on your own, show some initiative, you know, I think people will take note of that. And yeah, I think Patrick mentioned that as well. You know, use that time to study up on things and maybe do great on some of the things that you've been sort of putting off at this point. So yeah, make the best of sort of difficult or challenging circumstances.
Also, I had a lot of conversations with students from underrepresented groups, and one of the things that often comes up is that they feel being pushed to work because their parents might be with an immigration background, or they might be first generation. Take your time, find what's right for you, and don't feel pushed in either way even. So if you maybe come from a family where everybody has a PhD and you're just not feeling it, just don't do it. Make sure you own the career you enter and that you be happy with what you're doing. So don't be pushed either way. And there will be long hours and there will be moments where you doubt yourself, but you got this.
I was going to say that it's also important to remember that you are not trapped by your decisions. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people feel, especially when they're younger, that whatever you decide right now dictates the entire rest of your life. And I can say with a lot of confidence that that just simply is not true, even though it may feel that way. Um, I mean, just from my short amount of time working, I have met people of all sorts of backgrounds working at JPL. I met a woman who got her degree in literature from a liberal arts college who was doing science planning on the Cassini mission. It's like just because your degree does not define who you can become in the future. It's okay to change your mind and it's okay to not know it all right now. As long as you become comfortable with the fact that you are in control of the decisions you make in life, as in, if I don't like this, I should stop doing it. Then you will set yourself up for a really nice future. Just remember that, you know, you're never locked down, you're never truly locked down, and you can change your mind, and things will not be set in stone just because of the route that you take right now.
Yes, absolutely agree. Thank you for saying that. I was just going to say the same thing.
To build briefly on what Janelle was just saying, it helps to just ask. It's crazy how, as a woman in engineering, I find that I will sort of self-silence a lot of the time, and I have to remind myself, like, if you want to work on it, just ask. If you want to work on that field when you're in grad school, just ask. If you want to find out if you can get your grad degree paid for by work, just ask. It can't hurt. Just always ask for what you want.
Okay, I think that wrapped up our panel. Thank you everyone for calling in. Thank you for all of our members and all of our panelists. Hope you guys have a great night.